in case anybody was unable to join us. We are excited about our virtual format. We know it's not as good as seeing everyone face to face and getting to go across the state, but we're still excited about the chance to collaborate and share with you as we get ready to start probably the most unique year we will have. Hopefully, I'm putting that down, knocking in wood, that this is the most unique school year that we have in our careers, right? So we do have our links today, and thank you, Cami, for putting it in chat. Please join in on our slide deck because there will be lots of links that you will want to have access to throughout the presentation. I'm going to get us started with just a few opening slides. So first of all, we are using Microsoft Teams for today's meeting. So if you are new to Teams, a couple of things that we've learned this week is that you don't see the chat unless if you are using just the web browser. So if you look at your tray of icons in the center of the screen and you don't see the chat icon, which is the square with the two lines, we're sorry, that probably has something to do with the way you join the meeting, whether it's on the web browser or not. And some people have had success in leaving the meeting and coming back into it and seeing chat. So if you're having trouble seeing chat, I would encourage you to try leaving the meeting and coming back. We do ask that you stay muted unless you have a question. You do have the power of your microphone.
Or I can also ask if they don't.
Yeah. So even if you don't have chat, you're welcome to unmute and ask your questions and jump in. This is your time to be collaborative. We just do ask that you stay muted unless you have a question. So that way, in case there's any unexpected background noise. We also have a Padlet. You'll see it, it's in the top right corner of almost every slide. So if you have questions, topics that you want to discuss at any point in time, please take a second to go to the Padlet and add those. And I'm going to kind of be keeping track of them as Christy starts talking about if there's any questions or topics that pop up that we want to dig further into. The Padlet's also where you can share some of your challenges for this year as we start talking about blended learning. What are some things with Canvas that you would like help with? And we'll be happy to respond and brainstorm ideas as a group together. So please, I'll take a second to go ahead and look at that Padlet. And I'm still on a summer frame of mind, so I put the beach background there. Hope everyone's still with me there. And maybe the only way I get to go to the beach is in my background. So feel free to click on these plus icons to add questions, topics, ideas, any successes. We'd love to celebrate with you, even if it's just, yay, I'm getting my instance set up. And hopefully there's some new folks with us. We'll do introductions in just a minute. But one thing we do want to stop and pause for a second and ask everyone to sign in. You do not have to register for today's home-based meetup. So in order for us to make sure we have a record of everyone who's here and has attended, because Microsoft Teams doesn't keep an attendance list for us unless you're signed into Microsoft Teams. So please stop and take a second to sign in, and I'll make sure to put that link in the chat. And just to let you know, the session recordings for all of our home-based meetups will go out early next week. So that way you'll have the recordings to review for all the products in case there's something you missed that you wanted to go back and review. Any questions about the sign-in link? So Darlene, in the past, we've never given CEUs for home-based meetups. Just because it's kind of a collaborative session. where you are presenting and talking ideas. And so it hasn't met kind of that criteria yet for CEUs, but that's something I can take back to the team and we can discuss. But that's just something we haven't done in the past.
Liaja, they want to know the products supported. So Canvas, PowerSchool, SchoolNet, Nisus, GoOpenNCLearning.com. We did GoOpenNC.
And that's actually
Nisus
on the next
we're
slide,
doing.
Tina. So thank you. The next slide talks about our links and where we are so far. So today is Canvas, and tomorrow our final meetup is for GoOpenNC.
Okay.
And again, we do ask that unless you have a question, if you would click on that microphone and mute yourself, so that way we minimize any unexpected background noise. All right, so here's our schedule. We do have, at the present time, we're planning for all of our home-based meetups to be virtual format this year. That's just what we're planning with the pandemic. We do hope things change. They might allow us to reconsider for the spring, depending on how our conditions are. But for right now, we're definitely planning at least for those September and November HBMUs to be virtual. So please feel free to give us any comments in that parking lot for the Padlet about how we can make this more interactive and better. And we'll definitely take that to heart. Just a note, I'm sure you all are familiar with our Lighting the Way Forward guidance document that DPI has given. It does have a page at the beginning of it that tracks changes. So you can see the updates that have been made to this guidance document. It has been updated at least on a weekly basis. So if you haven't looked at it recently, I would encourage you to use the links to reopen it up. We also have a link here in our slide deck to our digital teaching and learning website, which has resources. And we have our remote learning resource page, which I see John's on the call, and John's been a big help in organizing and keeping that updated as new resources are added. And then, of course, our home-based website has more of our information about our home-based specific products. So we just wanted to make sure you have all these links because we know the DPI site was updated recently, and we wanted to share those back out. And then lastly, just the members of our home-based team. So you heard from Dr. Dietrich earlier, and he's our home-based manager. I'm the digital learning systems consultant. So I manage products of SchoolNet, Canvas, GoOpenNC, and Imagine Math. And then we have Justin Connor, who's our PowerSchool business manager. Cammie's on the line, and she's our Nisus and Learning.com representative. And then Tessa and John are on our home-based learning team, and they help with everything. We couldn't do life without John and Tessa. So that's just an overview of our team right now. We also have Yolanda, Wilson, and Audrey on our team as well, and they help with some of the support. So we definitely couldn't do it without a big team, right? Big state. So just a quick funding update from me. I know there's been a lot of conversation about Canvas funding, and we're so excited to actually have some funding to be sharing. We know this has been something that's been a big request every year for funding, and we were able to get from the House, from the General Assembly. They passed House Bill 1043, which provided $1.48 million in funding for either the establishment of Canvas or the expansion of Canvas. So this particular pot of money could not be used to supplant. So it couldn't be used for your current Canvas contracts. It can only be used if you were expanding your number of licenses or if you were interested in establishing Canvas. We put out an application process back at the end of June, and those applications have been approved, and that funding was actually allotted this week. So we're very excited that those of you who received funding for expansion or establishment of Canvas should have that funding in your code under PRC 129. And then we also have an additional bucket of funding that we're excited about that we could use for your current Canvas licenses. And we're waiting on guidance from the State Board of Education with a funding policy for how we can use that money. So there is a State Board of Education meeting next week, and I'm hoping that we will get more news about how we can spend that money, and then we can start reaching out to you all with what that will look like. So right now we're just waiting on the State Board of Education for an update on that. Any questions about funding before I move on? Okay, so if you have any questions about funding, feel free to reach out to me. Either you can send me an email and I'll be happy to check and see what's going on with any funding or answer your questions. I did want to point out one other partnership that we're working with. So we continue to work with Canvas or Instructure and PowerSchool to make sure things start off for a smooth beginning of the year. And currently there is some negotiations and agreements that have to become made regarding grade passback. So grade passback right now, as it stands right now, cannot be enabled for new Canvas customers. So if you were a current Canvas customer and you had grade passback enabled previously, that should still continue to work. What we're working on in agreement and talking to PowerSchool and Canvas about is how we can make grade passback work for our new customers. So that's just something that we're working on right now, and just wanted to put that out there as an issue of collaboration that we're working with Instructure and PowerSchool to get that moving. All right, just some resources that I wanted to share. We do have some back to school videos. There are 3 short, about 30-minute webinars that just cover the basics of Canvas, how to create a course, how to do quizzes and assignments, and how to do some apps and announcements. This is part of our back to school series. We have 3 videos for Canvas, 3 videos for SchoolNet, 2 videos for Go Open and See. There is a form at the bottom that educators can request a CEU certificate after they've watched at least 2 of the videos. All the videos are about 30 minutes long each, and there's 8 altogether, so they could get up to 0.4 CEU credit. So this is kind of in lieu of our August webinars, because with everyone starting back at different points this year, we felt it would be best just to have some videos that teachers can watch on demand. So you are welcome to share these videos. You're welcome to put them in any content. I know Lisa was talking about the SchoolNet videos and maybe using them in some of her PD modules that she's going to build for the year. So you are welcome to do that as well. We hope that these videos are helpful to you and flexible. And then, of course, we also have our monthly webinars coming up that'll start in September with Christy and I. So we have the links here for you to register. Please feel free to share these. All the videos get posted to our YouTube playlist, which is linked here on the slide. So if you're brand new to Canvas, you're brand new, and you're like, okay, my teachers are brand new, they need to start from the basics. There's about 20 hours of content right there on that YouTube playlist where they could kind of do a design your own adventure PD, where they watch some of those recorded webinars and really get that good fundamental understanding of Canvas. So just wanted to let you know and point that was out here. So I do see a question. We don't have a timeline at this time right now for when the grade passback will be resolved. We're working on it as soon as possible. We know that's an urgent issue with the start of school, so I'm hoping it'll be resolved soon. The good thing is you're saying that you're rolling out the students in January, so you have a little bit of time, so hopefully it'll be resolved by then, but I can't give any timelines. So introductions. While I switch things over and have Christy see if she can present, let's go ahead and start with introductions. You are welcome to type into the chat a little bit about yourself, or if you want to unmute and talk to us a little bit. We would love to get to know you. We know there's some new folks on the call. If it's your first home-based meetup, give us a little shout out, and we'll see if I can get the screen switched over here.
Hello, I'm Lisa Thompson with Union County Public Schools. I'm the EdTech Professional Development Coordinator, and I'm just excited. I like these different days for the different topics because now I get to go to Christy's session, which I didn't ever get to when we met face to face.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm looking to see in the chat, see if anyone else. Yes, Christy, we can see your screen.
Great, thanks. I don't see it on my window. I'm seeing your video, like you. So just wanted to make
sure. Teams is a little bit interesting with sharing your screen. So I've had to kind of work through that. But yeah, you should just see, unfortunately, the people versus your own screen.
All right, great. Thank you for verifying. While other people are introducing themselves, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. If you haven't ever been in a session with me before, my name is Christy Borum, and I work for Canvas. Been here for about 2.5 years. Was previously the Director of Digital Learning and Professional Development in Rockingham County. So I have sat in all of your shoes as the Canvas admin for my district for many years, and have been a Canvas user since 2011. So hopefully, questions that you ask or experiences that you're having, challenges that you may be facing, I have some experience to lend from in addition to my Canvas knowledge and background. Happy to see so many of returning friends. So, and also happy to see some new Canvas folks. Sarah, that's great that you're on 2 team meetings at the same time.
That is one strength, I will say, of Teams. It makes it easy to be in multiple Teams meetings at the same place. But thank you, everyone, for continuing to share your introductions. And I'm just checking the Padlet here. So we have some good stuff going on. Make sure you keep checking out that Padlet as you have questions and topics.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and jump in. Thanks again to everybody for introducing yourselves. I know it's really nice if you all share something during the session for others to know who has shared those ideas in case there are additional questions or you want to reach out and try to collaborate. So thank you for that. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about Canvas and PowerSchool. We're going to talk about terms, grading periods, parent observers, support, migrating course content, training, NC Canvas Commons, and then also just a reminder of our monthly North Carolina Canvas admin statewide calls. So Canvas and PowerSchool. Before we talk about Grade Passback, which I appreciate Pam, discussing the current challenge that we have for new customers. But before we talk about Grade Passback, I want to talk about just provisioning in general, especially for those of you who are new, but even for those of you who are returning, just a reminder that with the Canvas and PowerSchool sync, that data is generally set to update once a day. And generally that's sometime in the middle of the night, maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It does take several hours. So you may, if you're on your Canvas sys import page, you may see that there's something in progress. But once it is finished, you'll see last batch update and time. And all of these different items are provisioned from PowerSchool to Canvas. So your users, your staff and student accounts, that often does not include district level staff. You can ask that PowerSchool includes school 0 in your SIF agents, and very often that can help bring in some of those district level staff. A lot of our school districts just create district level users in Canvas if they know that they don't need any connection to a PowerSchool course. But I also would just caution against creating users manually in Canvas if those people will need to have connections to PowerSchool courses. Because if you create them manually, they will not be connected to their PowerSchool courses. So it's always best to not create users manually in school, but to allow that PowerSchool sync that happens nightly to make those additions and create those users and enrollments. Again, they normally happen in the middle of the night. So if your data administrator is entering in a student's schedule change, that would be reflected in Canvas the next day. We also do not generally sync on Friday and Saturday nights due to some some PowerSchool maintenance. So if, for instance, there were schedule changes on Friday, you should still see them by Monday because we should sync on Sunday night, but just know that we generally don't sync North Carolina accounts on Fridays and Saturdays. Your schools become sub-accounts in Canvas. So if you look at your sub-accounts, you see schools. Your terms are brought in by Canvas or by PowerSchool. Just know that we are going to look at terms in a little bit, but you should always allow that PowerSchool sync to control the term dates in Canvas. It can be very problematic if you adjust the term dates in Canvas yourself and don't allow that sync to control that. We have 2 ways of bringing in courses, either one-to-one or one-to-many, and that's something that you made a decision on when you had your PowerSchool provisioning set up. We do ask you each year, as you know, in the spring, if you've been an existing client, in the spring we say, are there any configuration changes you want to make for next year? And so that is the time to make a change. So a one-to-one configuration means if you have a teacher and she has 3 English 1 classes in PowerSchool, those are all separate sections. But if you are a one-to-one configuration, those will also be separate classes in Canvas. If you are a one-to-many configuration, that means that teacher, all 3 of those sections would be in one Canvas course. So just know those are the differences. One-to-one means you get a separate course for every single section in PowerSchool. One-to-many means those with the same PowerSchool course code for the would all be nested into one Canvas course. So we also obviously bring in sections and we bring in enrollments for both the student and teacher. And I'm looking to see, I saw a couple of questions. Is there a way to split one section of students into separate AB courses and have grades from sorry, I've got to expand that, from the PowerSchool, since PowerSchool will have it as a single course.
I guess I should clarify that.
Yeah.
What we're doing is when we start our Plan B 50-50, where we're seeing 50% of students, we're going to split our classes into AB. Like one class in PowerSchools is actually going to be seen, half of them are going to be seen on Monday, Tuesday, half of them are going to be seen on Thursday, Friday. And some teachers are just asking if they can have 2 separate courses, because part of them are going to be home and part of them are going to be face-to-face, at different times. So it's like one week they come face-to-face, one week they come, not. So I think they're just asking if they can still have the grades. PowerSchool has them in one class, but still split them up into 2 courses in Canvas and still have the grades go to PowerSchool like they're supposed to, basically is what the question was.
Yeah, and unfortunately the answer to that's going to be no. Let me go to my sandbox and show you So you could absolutely separate them. I mean, that's not an issue. You could use groups, as Pam suggested. I actually would probably recommend using sections versus groups within one course, because you can assign things and do announcements and discussions to a whole section. You can't really do that for a group. And groups are set up so students do group work. So section would probably be the best option. So you could set up sections. You're automatically going to have sections created in PowerSchool or in Canvas from PowerSchool, whether you're one-to-one or one-to-many. So one-to-one would be just one section with all your students. If it was one-to-many, then you would have students divided into separate sections already. But teachers can also create their own sections. But what you were asking about grade functionality, grade passback functionality will not work unless you assign something to an entire section, an entire PowerSchool section. So although I could create an assignment and assign it to that section A for one due date, so I could, have make all of my decisions here. And then instead of assigning it to everyone, I could assign it to A day. Oops. I could make that be due on, tomorrow. I can make it be due tomorrow. And then I could also have a due date for B day and have that be due, let's say, today. So I could do that. Sorry, I had that external tool. Just I apologize about my doorbell ringing. So I could do that. It's going to tell me not everybody's assigned because I didn't really put students in those sections. But you can have different due dates, and then students would only, see the due date that applies to them. You can also do the same thing with announcements, like when you create an announcement. You can choose what section you want to get that announcement, so they can do separate announcements. So that's definitely a way to work through that challenge. But unfortunately, unless something is assigned to the whole class, and it would have to be to the whole class at the same due date, unless that's assigned to the whole class where it says everyone, and or assigned to a specific PowerSchool created section, the grade passback functionality won't work. And there's a question about, is it too late to change the one-to-one or one-to-many? Unfortunately, if you have already started syncing your data, it is too late. Especially if anyone, it is too late, but it's also very problematic if you try to make those changes after you have, anyone has started creating content. Because if we could even make that change now, it would basically overwrite those courses and all the content would be lost. So definitely not a good time to do that now. But when you receive your PowerSchool rollover survey in the spring, if you would like to make a change, you can do that. You can request that then. One option though is if you are one-to-one and teachers do want those nested, then they can manually cross-list their sections. I just included the guides for how to cross-list and also how to decross-list in case they have done something and wanted to change, to get it back, revert backwards. Again, if a teacher has already started creating content and or students have already started submitting work and you cross-list, very likely you're going to see that content is lost. So these types of actions are best done prior to course development and or launch for students. Let me go back. There's a couple more.
And this is Heather from Gaston County Schools. I was the one that was asking that question actually. So that helps extremely, like that helps us tremendously, everything that you just said. So you're suggesting, so we've already done the 1-to-1. And so it's too late for us to change. And so our teachers are really nervous about having to, they're trying to figure out how to like combine courses or like not double work. And we've told them how to just copy or share to the commons or whatever. So you're saying cross list would be something for us to suggest to them? Because we don't want them to mess up their PowerSchool syncing and grading and all that stuff. But they also don't want to double work, and they're trying to figure out how to combine or
Yeah,
break down.
So direct share, I didn't hear you mention that. I heard you mention copy.
Yes, indirect share, yes.
Yeah, so that's a really nice way if they're not going to combine the classes. But yeah, what's going to happen is if they decide to cross list, and Darlene, yes, teachers have always been able to cross list and decross list. They can't decross list if you're a one-to-many configuration though. So that's probably what you're asking about. If it's set to be a one-to-many configuration, you cannot decross list. Okay, so I'm going to go back to your question, Heather. Basically, when you go to cross list, you take one main section and you decide, okay, I'm going to use the shell that was created for first period, and I'm going to put second and third period in there too. Okay, you would cross list the second and third period sections into first period, but only the content that was in first period is going to be visible. So let's say they had started building separate content, which is probably not the case here, but let's just say that they had, then you're going to lose that content that they built in second and third period. So again, it's best to do it before they start building their courses. And or if all the courses match currently, that's fine. A huge issue though, if you do it after students have started submitting work, because you're going to lose those student submissions and grades.
Okay, that is perfect because they haven't started yet. So that is perfect. Thank you so much. That is like a huge weight off of our shoulders.
Yeah, good. Darlene, I would have to look at a specific example, or Lauren or Ashley could help with that. So if you have a specific example, we can look at it. You email us or contact support as well. They can help with that. I'm going to go back because I know Dawn asked a question and I don't want to miss that. You can merge accounts, Dawn, for your new hires. Just know that there is, if you have created someone and you've used their UID for their login, when you try to PowerSchool Sync, it's not going to create that user because it's going to say that login ID has already been claimed. Also, if it very often recognizes people by email. So sometimes you have issues there because if it recognizes that email is already associated with another user. So if the user is created by PowerSchool, it's not a problem at all to merge accounts. But the issue is that very often, I hope you don't mind, Dawn, I'm going to pull up your instance. I'm going to pull up your instance and just go to the System Import tab. Very often, whenever you have already manually created users, in the list of warnings that you'll see will be login ID was already claimed for user, or user not created, login ID was already claimed, or something to that effect. So you would know that those users did not even get created by PowerSchool. So I know that new hire situations are interesting to navigate. I definitely, in order for teachers to receive training, recommend creating demo users that you could even reuse year to year, and or trying to make something that's a public facing course that they don't have to authenticate into, so that you don't have to create those users manually. But I know a lot of people do it and it's a necessity. So just know that you can merge users. So let me go here.
And Christy, can you hear me okay? So the issue was, and I talked to Lauren through this as well, and I'm hoping I did it right. So I created all of their accounts with their personal email.
Gotcha.
And so their sys ID and their login is all associated with their personal email. So once they're active and they're associated with their ISS email, merging should not be an issue because I did the personal email, correct?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all I need to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I feel exposed and you showing behind the curtain on my answers. Just saying.
Look, you know I always pick on you, but
That's right.
But the thing is, everybody's going to have these types of errors. So I mentioned earlier, once your data is syncing for PowerSchool daily, you'll see that on your Sys import tab. This was a good, example that you'll see that it was started and then it imported, but then it'll have a list of errors. And so in this case, it's probably that somehow the enrollment was processed before that user was created, and or because these are staff members, I would guess, and Dawn, this might be a situation, I would guess that some of these might be users you've already created that now PowerSchool didn't create, and then they don't find that user because it's not a PowerSchool created user. And this is, showing behind your curtain is going to be what everybody's behind the curtain looks like. Everybody's going to see some errors like this. So, definitely good to investigate, because these are probably going to be people that you hear from later that say, I don't have my courses, because these are all teachers. And I know they're teachers because the SysID is starting with a UDCID number. Students usually have student underscore in a number. So I know all these are teachers. So all of these teachers did not get the enrollments into these sections. So it's really good to go in and check those and try to resolve them. And that list will update daily. So, it's a good idea to kind of check it daily, especially here at the beginning of the year.
And the best way to vet that is just simply search for them under people, right? By the UDCID, or is that correct? Just to see what the issue might be.
Well, so if you don't, I hope you don't mind that I'm going to continue to do this.
You have carte blanche. You can do whatever you want to do.
Okay. So it's not going to find that user, right? So if your PowerSchool data manager can help you identify the user by the UDCID, that's great. We use the UDCID as the SysID in Canvas, which is the ID that connects them to PowerSchool. So it may not even let me search by that. No, I'm going to need another name. Yeah. So in order to identify them, I think you're going to have to work with the PowerSchool data manager to find out what user had that UDCID. And just for anybody who has not done this before, in PowerSchool, teachers have a UDCID and a DCID. We use the UDCID, or sometimes it's referred to as the user's DCID, which is not generally visible in the PowerSchool user interface. And so your data managers can pull reports and help you get those and identify those teachers.
And Christy, when just to clarify, when I've asked my PowerSchool manager to send me the UDCID, she always puts just DCID number. So are there two separate numbers?
Yes, the DCID.
She doesn't. I don't know if she knows that. Okay, I'll work with her on that.
Yeah, so the DCID number, teachers can have multiple DCID numbers. So this is, and I know you have this example. So you have teachers who teach at their home school, but then they might also be teachers in your virtual academy. Those teachers will probably have two DCID numbers. That's why we use the UDCID number, because it's unique and there's only one per teacher. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. All right, so let me see if I missed a question. Let me keep going. And yeah, Pam, thanks for answering that about students needing, the assignments need to be assigned to the entire PowerSchool section. That's correct.
So there is a question about co-teachers. I don't know if you want to address that now, or if you're going to talk about that later.
Okay, I wasn't planning to, but I'll do that. So co-teachers are not provisioned from PowerSchool to Canvas. I recently, as of like 2 days ago, heard that there are some people who are PowerSchool users who are able to work with PowerSchool to get PowerSchool to add co-teachers to their, or, you know, a TA maybe to the SIF agent packet that they send us, or to the SIF packet. But that would be something you'd have to request from PowerSchool. And at this point, we do not have any North Carolina schools who are doing that. So I personally haven't seen it, but I have heard that some PowerSchool accounts have worked with PowerSchool to do that. So you could create a PowerSource ticket and ask them to add co-teachers to your SIF packet.
And that's also something that I'm bringing up too as well through our avenues here at the state level to see what the possibilities are about that being added.
Awesome. Thank you. So Samantha, if we're set to resume your sync on July 29th, you know, I would love to say that I'll remember to follow up on it after this call, but your best route always is to submit I've been talking about PowerSchool, is to submit a support ticket, or as an admin, you know, you can call or chat support and ask them, and they can get our SIS team to investigate, you know, what's happening, why your PowerSchool provisioning hasn't started if you set it to resume on July 29th. I'm just looking through questions, y'all. Yeah, so that's the co-teachers. Jan, you asked about school-wide student courses. Absolutely. I did that every year. I created a student, as not only a student body course, but also a faculty course in Canvas for all of our schools. And in addition to having just a full student body course, we even, for high school especially, created a 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade class, so that students, if our college and career advisors or our guidance counselors needed to send scholarship information or ACT information or college visit information out to, you know, just a specific class of students, they could do that without sending it to the entire school. Now, another way to do that would be to create one student body course and create sections and put the students in their appropriate grade level section. And then again, you can send announcements just to sections. That is going to be something that's a manual process, and someone's going to have to own the import of those students and or faculty. And just to give you an example, we added in principals, assistant principals, counselors, college advisors, media coordinators, and instructional facilitators, or ITFs, instructional technology facilitators. We added all of those people with teacher roles in those student body courses. And then we added the rest of the staff as students. That way the staff had the information students were getting, but they didn't necessarily, they weren't teachers in that student body course. So yes, I think it's a wonderful way to communicate with students. It's a wonderful way to communicate announcements. It's a great way to, you know, you all have your E-rate digital citizenship requirements. It was a wonderful way to make sure all of our students were getting that digital citizenship guidance. We used it for, you know, hour of code. We use those courses for lots of things, not just, you know, announcements and information. Anytime we wanted to make sure that all of our students were participating in some type of training, for Canvas training, you can use it, you know, import a getting started in Canvas training module. Lots of ways to use those student body courses. So great question. There is not a way for us to parse or pick and choose courses that are added to Canvas. Basically, if it is a PowerSchool course, it's going to get added to Canvas. So unfortunately, that's not an option. Dave, if you're, and you are buying templates, so when you buy templates and you make those available to teachers, if they have already started building content it's going to be fine. Their content won't go anywhere. However, and I know Dawn has recently, sorry, picking on you again, Dawn, but I just remember seeing a question, has recently experienced this because, you know, when you apply a template, if it has a home page, then that home page is going to get overridden by the template homepage. Now, they can revert. It's not an issue at all. So I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. So let me, okay. So I have a course and I have created this homepage. I've selected modules as my homepage, okay? So I'm going to cancel that. Now, if I want to go into Commons and import a template into my course, so let's say I'm going to use the 4 through 6 template. And you know, these can take a few minutes, so it may not be in there automatically, but let me show you. So it's still running. So I'm going to go on to another question and we'll come right back to this. I'll show you that. Best way for elementary teachers to use Canvas if they want to use one course with a weekly subject-based setup. Yes. So for most of our elementary school teachers, I know they're using standards-based grading or standards-based report cards in PowerSchool. So they could just select one of their Canvas courses to use and publish. Because grade passback does not work with standards-based report cards in PowerSchool. So if grade passback is not a concern, then they could just, you know, pick one, publish that one, use that one, and set it up however they want to. Now the course name, that's where the homeroom classes are great, because you could just use the homeroom shell for elementary, and then that would be a great idea. And students wouldn't be confused that the course name was like, you know, Miss Smith math. If grade passback is a concern, you would have to cross list all of the sections into one class. But there's a caution there as well, because if you create an assignment and you assign it to everyone, that's going to create the assignment in every single PowerSchool gradebook. So that would mean it would create it in social studies, science, English, math. If teachers select the section, so they just select to assign it to the social studies section, then it would just go into the social studies gradebook in PowerSchool. However, we think that that's going to be a difficult thing to communicate and train on, just being honest. I think there's a lot of room for error there, but just know that that is a possibility. The other thing is grade passback, if it is working, is the assignment categories in PowerSchool all have to be the same if you're using them in a Canvas course. So if all of those sections are cross-listed into one Canvas course, they all have to have the same PowerSchool grading categories in order for it to work. Okay. And this is completed now. I'm going to go back to my home. And so now you're going to see that that template imported into my class. So my home page changed, but I could easily just go back and change my home page again. All of the content that I had created previously, so you see the same content is here, but now all the new content is in there as well. I hope that answers that question, Dave. Sarah, you asking about importing from Commons templates? There are tons. You can go in, you can even just search for template. here. And you'll find lots of other templates that have been created and shared in Commons. There are some that we have available for free. So let me go. I have a doc that I kind of just curate elementary resources on. So on this doc, I also have links out to some elementary templates specifically. We also created, and this says K5, but you have links to both K5 and 612 on here. We created at Canvas some templates to share. So I'm going to drop the link to this document. Oops. Going to drop the link to this document in chat for you. And those are those elementary resources. Let's see. Yes, you can also preview that template. So let's go back to my. So let's say this newspaper template. It doesn't look exactly like the format, but it's pretty close. So you can see all of those details. This specifically just has one page. So if I had to choose a better one, so let's do template class template. You can preview it. So you can see what that looks like, and then you can, and these templates don't have a ton of things in them. But yeah, you can always preview whatever it is that you want to see. So here you see, this is the home page. You see all the discussions and files as well. I'm going to come back to the enhancement question in just a second. Right, and I appreciate that, Pam, answering. When you're creating a course for all faculty, you can use create a CSV file that allows you to create those enrollments really quickly. And that's the same for the student body classes or student body courses as well. So you would just look for the enrollments CSV file on this webpage. Search Don because he's got a template in Commons. Thank you, Don. And coming back to elementary enhancements, again, teachers can create assignment or create sections. So let me go to my dashboard real quickly. So new course. So basically, they're going to have courses created, you know, in PowerSchool, and then then again in Canvas, probably for every grade level, every section, maybe every teacher. I don't know what that configuration really looks like, but they could select to choose one course, Canvas course, and then they could cross-list all of those sections into that course. So they would just go to the way they do that is they actually go to the courses that they want to cross list into another course. But so I'm kind of showing it backwards, but they basically would go to the course that they want to cross list into here, and then they would search for that course, and they would then cross list the sections. But once they cross listed all the sections into this class, then they could set it up however they wanted to. And that's if they just want to use one Canvas shell. Many of them, won't want to use just one Canvas shell. They'll want to have grade level specific ones. But if they want to have grade level specific ones, and then they have, but still have multiple sections because of, having, 5 teachers in 3rd grade or whatever, they could just cross list those 3rd grade classes all into one. Can anyone else not see my screen? It says it's screen sharing.
Yeah, I can see it, Christy.
Okay, thank you. If you're looking at the browser, Dave, you may have to go back to that browser tab if you had navigated off of it. And I just say that because it happened to me when I first joined too. I was trying to figure out where the meeting went. So I don't know if that helps at all. All right, I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to move ahead, but just know that if you need me to answer anything else, I appreciate Pam keeping an eye on chat too, but I'm happy to stop at any point in time, because this is the type of home-based meetup we really want to have, right? Is for you all asking questions, collaborating. So even though I prepare content sometimes, I'm very happy to navigate off course and answer your questions. Sarah's asking about before cross-listing. Actually, Sarah, you're going to do it the other way around. And I'm getting ready to show that in just a second, okay? So Power Teacher Pro Grade Passback. Again, Pam mentioned this morning that we are continuing to work with Power School on helping to get Power School Grade Passback functionality for our new clients. But for anyone that was already using Grade Passback, just a reminder that you have to share these directions with teachers annually, generally biannually, because you usually have to remind them again, especially for high school students when second semester comes around. So there are some resources I've shared here with you. This is actually our official guide of how to use Power Teacher Pro in Canvas, and there are links out to all kinds of other guides. But I also continue, I've used the same slide deck for a lot of years, and I continue to update it every time there's a change. And there is going to actually be a change just in the way the error reporting looks. So know that I'll be updating this pretty soon as I have that detail to update. But you should feel comfortable that you could use this, because I do continue to update it. It's the same link that you've used in the past. But when you're working with teachers on Grade Passback, so Sarah was asking if they needed to import categories before they cross-listed, if they're cross-listing, but that it's actually opposite, okay? So if you cross-list sections, you have to do it before you import your Power Teacher Pro grading categories. Because if you've imported categories and then you cross-list, that course has no connection to categories for the classes you cross-listed. That's why you have to cross-list first, okay? So that's another thing I do, is when I find that there are lots of questions that are asked over and over, I'll try to call them out on here too. So just remember, if you have teachers who are manually cross-listing, they need to do that before they import their Power Teacher Pro grading categories. But these are the steps that all teachers have to do, and they have to do all steps. So I know that you all who work with Grade Passback know this as well. This is almost every issue is operator error, right? It's that they haven't done something, and generally that is they have not imported their grading categories. The question about where is the slide deck? It is on slide 19. Canvas and Power Teacher Pro Grade Passback, excuse me. All right. And so what they have to do is make sure that their grading categories in Power School are consistent for every course that's cross-listed in Canvas. Again, if all those sections live in Canvas in one course, their grading categories in Power School have to be the same. They should set those up, and then they have to wait 24 hours. Because again, remember, all the Canvas and Power School connections happen nightly. After they have set the categories up, made sure they're the same, waited 24 hours, then they should log into both. And then they will go into Canvas and import those assignment groups into Canvas. And I'm going to show you how to do that, a screenshot of how to do that. But just wanted to make sure that you know that they have to follow these steps exactly. And there's a note here that if they're importing categories from Power Teacher Pro, let's say that they've already, they're importing content from last year. They're still going to have to import their categories annually And or again, if it's a new semester course, they still have to do it. That changes semester for a new course. If there are already assignment groups with the same name as the Power Teacher Pro grading categories are getting ready to import, best practice is for them to go ahead and change those names in Canvas and not make sure they're not ones are getting ready to import. And then, of course, after they have imported the categories, they just need to make sure that they imported successfully. There's a guide here that shows them directly how to do that, but also this is what it looks like. So they will go into their Canvas course to the assignments tab. They go to these three dots. They say import assignment groups, and then the groups imports, and they have this icon. And they have to use the ones with this icon. Now, I did find last year that some of the categories looked like they had the icon because they had been imported courses from the year before. But again, teachers have to do this for every new course. Even if they have assignment groups with icons, if they have not done this step, they have to do this step. When they're creating assignments, if they want to Power Teacher Pro, they have to put the assignments in the categories or the groups that have this icon. If they're just putting it in one that does not have that icon, that assignment will never sync to Power Teacher Pro. Okay. Again, you have to verify that all assignments that you want to sync are in those correct assignment groups. And they also have to have a check mark for sync to PowerSchool. And then if it's not checked, and or the assignment name doesn't have something that's 30 characters or less, or I think that increased to 50, but it should automatically tell them if the assignment name is too long. But they have to, when they're creating an assignment, there's a box that says sync to Power Teacher Pro. They need to make sure that's checked if they want it to sync. If it's checked, then this mark on their assignments page will also be checked. If they did not check it, this will not be checked and the assignment will not sync. They can toggle it. Or excuse me, that's the publish button, is this one. Sorry about that. First time I've done a grade pass back demonstration this year. All right, so it's this button. So this will be green if they have checked this box. If they did not check this box, this is not green, that assignment will not sync. They have to check it. Also, the due date has to be present in order for it to sync. So it has to be in this category. It has to be published. It has to be set to sync to Power Teacher Pro, and it has to have a due date in order for it to sync. I need to change this slide because we don't even have Legacy Grade Passback anymore, but you click Act in order to start the grade sync process. Teachers can go to the grade book and select the sync to Power Teacher Pro. That's the old book. The new grade book, you go to Actions, Sync to Power Teacher Pro, and they would sync that and hit that button and it would sync. They also can set up a daily sync by going to the tab in their course that says Monitoring and Reporting. Again, I think the name of this is going to change from Monitoring and Reporting, but that's what I need to update once that change is made. But basically on that tab, they'll have a reporting tab, which looks like this and has a list of errors. If anything, it'll show them every time they synced, if it was successful, in queue, in progress, failed, errors. All of those things will be here. There also is a monitoring tool error message area. So if they get errors, this tells them exactly what it looks like, what it means, and how to resolve it. So all those messages will be there for them. On the sync tab, they can schedule a daily sync. And also, if they, for some reason, have been having trouble really getting their grades to sync, my suggestion is always to have them go back to here and import their assignment groups again, because sometimes either they forgot to do it originally and or might lose that connection for some reason to PowerSchool. Then after they select that, then they could run a bulk grade passback, and that would go back and try to resync everything again. Okay, so that tab, that sync tab, is visible on this page. There's some just helpful tips. I've already talked about these things, but there are helpful tips here, and there's also some video and some other resources. So again, 9 times out of 10, if a teacher is having problems with grade passback, it's because they haven't put that assignment in a Power Teacher Pro imported group or assignment group or category. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to move on. All right, reviewing term dates. So these are some of the things that at the beginning of the year, we always suggest that you do. Dawn, is it okay if I continue to pick on you since I have Iredell open? Silence permission. I'm going to take it as such. Ask forgiveness. Okay, I'll do Johnston, Dave, if that's all right. So what you want to do is make sure that when your Power Teacher, or excuse me, your Power School Sync has completed, so your new school year data is in there, you want to go into your terms page and make sure that if your teachers need access beyond the end date of the term, then you could go ahead and provide them access. Generally, it's not so much the start that people have concern about as it is the end. And so I'll show you how you do that. In your instance, you'll go to terms. I'm going to shut some of these things down. Maybe it'll get me moving a little faster. Still waiting, so close a couple more. Okay, here we go. All right, so these, for Johnson County, you see all of the terms, right? And then all of them have a term runs from and to date. Do not ever adjust these dates. This is what I was talking about. These come from Power School. So if you have inclement weather that you don't use remote learning to make up, and you actually have calendar changes, do not change them in Canvas, excuse me. They're changed in Power School and will sync to Canvas. However, let's say that Dave knows that his teachers are going to need access to continue grading and to continue, editing that course past May 29th. He could go in and use this pencil beside that term and extend that teacher access date out further. So, if you know that the teachers are going to need access until like June 6th, and I apologize, I am having a little latency here. Typically, this calendar is going to load for me, and it would allow me to go ahead and do that. Unfortunately, it's not loading right this second, so there it goes. But he would choose that date. He could even choose a time and update term. I'm going to cancel that though. And it is definitely got a little, and it is most likely my internet connection. Y'all know how it is when you have children at home who are using lots of internet while you're also trying to stream video calls. It can be problematic. So I'm having just a little bit of, my son must have just woke up. Y'all so might have seen him walk behind me just a second ago. But unfortunately, that is a manual process, and you will have to do it for each of your terms. Another thing that I want to point out is that for some of your terms, you're going to see 0 courses. That may be expected. However, if, and some of you who've been with us for a couple of years know this, very often if your Power School data managers set up your grading terms prior to your Power School Canvas Sync pause date last spring, you may have had terms created last school year. And then when you restarted your sync this school year, you may see those again. One would have courses and one would say 0 courses. So I'm going to just look. Now, Johnston doesn't have that, at least for this particular term, but some have some of you may see duplicate terms. I personally am too scared to delete the terms at the start of the school year, just in case there's a school that hasn't really worked on, setting up their terms. Later on in the school year, if you wanted to clean up the terms page and courses are pretty much all being created and you see a lot of terms with 0 courses, then you should, and they're duplicates, so you have one that has courses and one that doesn't in the same name, then you could delete them. But just know your terms page is probably long and some of you are going to have duplicates. And Dave, you mentioned that you extended the thing for 3 weeks, and I think you're talking about your grading periods, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. But in order for teachers to have grading access, you also have to extend the term access end date. Basically, this page, your terms page, the teacher access end date, extends their edit access to the course. It's not even specifically talking about grading. It's edit access to the course. So you have to extend that. But then what Dave was mentioning is his grading periods, which is the next thing that we were going to talk about, is setting up your grading periods. Okay, and if you haven't done that before, then you can see a couple of these guides we've linked out here. And notice I put a tip to watch out for those duplicate terms, because when you are creating your grading period sets, you have to identify and associate all of the terms that grading period set, those grading periods for this grading period set need to apply to. If you have duplicate terms and you didn't select some of them, then you're going to have teachers that tell you that grading periods aren't working in their courses. So if Dave, and it didn't look like he did, but if he had 2, Riverdale or River Middle semester 2s, if he had those duplicate terms, he would want to make sure he put both of them in the grading period set, just to be sure which was the one that had the courses associated with it. So when you're creating, and Dave, I'm going to go into your beta instance. It shouldn't be there if you just did these yesterday. When you're creating your grading period sets, I'm going to show you how to do that. Sorry, Dave. I was a little ahead of you, right? All right, so these are his 1920, because he just set these up yesterday. So we're going to go to 2020, 2021. And we're going to say traditional schools. I always start with traditional schools first, because most of them are traditional schools. So as you start choosing these terms, they disappear from the list, so you have fewer to scroll through. So if you try to do like an early college or a year-round school first, you're going to have to scroll through a long list of terms. But all you'll do, and I don't know which ones, and this is in your beta instance, so I'm not in your real instance, but if he was just setting it up, he would just go through here and just continue to click on the quarters or the semesters or the year terms that applied to this grading period set. All right, so let's say that he'd gone through and picked them all. He can make decisions whether he wants to weight them and or if he wants an overall average for all grading periods to show for students. Once he's done that, he can create that. And that just creates the set. But then to add in the actual grading periods, you click on plus grading period, and then he's going to call it Q1, have a start date, have an end date, and have a close date. And this is where, so Dave mentioned he had extended it out 3 weeks to give teachers 3 additional weeks time to grade. My suggestion is to work with your PowerSchool data manager to make sure that you have this set to be the same date that the PowerSchool grades are going to be stored and locked for that particular grading term, because so PowerSchool changed last year with an update, and teachers are no longer able to sync grades after they're locked in PowerSchool. So I would make sure to just coordinate that date with your data manager, your district data manager, and then you save it. Now all I did was create Q1, so I need to come in here and do it for Q2, Q3, Q4 as well. You cannot have overlapping dates, but you also don't want to have any dates that are not accounted for. So October 1st is a Thursday. I'm going to start that on Friday. If I had said, October 2nd, was the end date. I would still want to have started on October 3rd. You don't want any weekends or holidays or anything like that not accounted for. And the reason why is because you actually will have some teachers who assign a lot of work on the weekends. Like it was wonderful for my daughter in particular. She did a lot of her work. She always took 5 classes instead of 4 classes, per semester. And she did a lot of virtual classes. And so she did a ton of her work on the weekends. And it worked really well. Her teachers, most of them, because they knew there were virtual classes, they would set their due dates to be either Sunday or Saturday or Sunday. And that gave the kids extended time, to work on them on the weekends. If you had set up the grading period to skip the weekend, then anything assigned for those weekend due dates would not get factored or averaged into the student's grade for the grading period at all. So just make sure there's no gaps there. Okay. Sarah asked a question about the default term, and the default term is just it's up to you what you use the default term for. Basically, there's always going to be one, right? So we just have a default term. Most of the time, people use those for like professional development classes or for like teacher sandbox courses, curriculum content, things like that. And the default term generally doesn't have a start or end date. And that means that those courses never really conclude. Some people do decide to put start and end dates and have, different default terms that they use for different school years. Not really different default terms, but specific terms they use for different school years. But basically, it's a place for you to put courses. You just don't really have a start and end date. They're usually manually created courses. If you are in your instance and you are creating a course manually, it's automatically going to go to that default term unless you change it. So if I didn't put anything here, then it's going to automatically go to that default term. But if I wanted it to go to a specific term, then I would select that when creating that course manually. Thanks for that note, Pam. So Samantha asked about the grading periods. No, it's still, so the teachers are still gonna, in theory, teachers are still gonna have to uncheck that box. However, let me check something. I heard there's a solution. We've been working on it. Dave knows, because we actually worked with Johnston specifically a little bit on this in the spring. Oops, I didn't mean to go to attendance. I meant to go to settings. Being a little buggy this morning. So there is this button. Remember I told you there's going to be some changes coming? This is hidden. I thought maybe it was going to be open in beta. That's why I looked. But this new sys integration settings is supposed to, it says any customers that's currently using it can enable this for enhanced assignment data validation. And the post assist feature option's been incorporated in this. So this setting, when it's developed fully and available and released, is supposed to help that issue where we're going to basically be looking for due dates that are in past grading or closed grading periods, and we would not try to send that data to PowerSchool. So for those of you who don't know what Samantha was asking about, in a course, when teachers have that, and I don't have it in my course because I don't have a connection to PowerSchool, but as I was mentioning on their assignments page, I showed you that there would be like they would have Power Teacher Pro categories, and then they would have like 2 buttons here. In the past, after PowerSchool made that update last year, if an assignment was in a closed grading period, teachers had to untoggle or move that assignment so that it didn't try to send it to PowerSchool. But this setting that's currently in beta, and it's hidden right now in beta, so it's not ready, but once it's ready, this is supposed to help us not try to send those. So we would be looking for them, but it's not right. It's not ready yet, but it is coming. Supposedly it will. So any questions about grading periods? Yeah, that is great news. I know, Samantha. I was excited to read it when I saw that it was coming. I knew they were working on it, but okay. All right, so we're going to talk about parent observers. If I need to circle back to anything, let's see, securing size of district, we had to set that every year. Yes, so you have to create your grading periods every year. James, I'm not sure I understood. If you haven't set, I'm not sure if you haven't set up your grading periods. I think that's what you're asking, because terms and grading periods are different in Canvas. If you haven't set up your grading periods, it's really okay. You hit your earliest Q1 end date, because if you have already, until you're moving into Q2 or your second 6 weeks, depending on what your configuration is, all the grades in Canvas would be averaged together anyway, because they're all that first grading period. But once you've moved in for your earliest calendar, once you've moved into that second grading period, you would definitely want to have those grading periods set up by then, so that students were seeing accurate grades according to that grading period. So yeah. So James, terms come from PowerSchool. So you don't really set them up. I'm not sure. You said you have some non-traditional schools that start earlier, but your terms come from PowerSchool, so you're not setting them up.
I'm sorry, I just used the wrong language. We've got an early college and another school that started about a week and a half before everybody else, so their grading terms are different. Their grading periods. So you got it. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need them on before they start school next week.
No, you're good. You're good. And you're going to create a separate set for those, which you know that. But, just like, Dave here last year had traditional schools, restart schools. A lot of people have a traditional school early calendar and a year round or whatever. You want to have grading periods set that align to each of those separate calendars that you're running in the district. But yeah, until you're hitting that beginning of Q2 or your second 6 weeks, you're good for sure. So Heather is asking about mass importing parents. So that was very timely going into our parent observer conversation. I think I only know of one school in North Carolina that imports observers. I may not know of everyone, but I think I only know of one. And it is a small charter school because they don't have that many parents to have to create and connect. There is an option to do so. I think the challenge has been that we aren't sure, like districts aren't sure that they have correct email addresses for parents to create those accounts. But certainly, if you wanted to create those user accounts for parents, you can. You use a user observer CSV file, and there's a sample file here so you can see it. But basically, you have to have observer ID, a student ID, and a status. So actually, you have to create the user first, because in order to do that, you have to give them a user ID. So you would create the user first. You'd have to do 2 files. Have to make sure your students are loaded. Then you have to get your student ID. So you get the ID for the parent, you would get the ID for the student, and then you would make them, and then use this file to make the connection. So you can do that. Most people do not do that. And my recommendation would not be to do that. My recommendation would be to allow students to generate pairing codes and to parents to create their own accounts. You don't have to let students generate pairing codes. You also can let teachers generate a list of pairing codes for students or to hand out to parents. I still don't recommend that. And the reason why is because pairing codes only live for 7 days and they're only good for one user. So if a teacher generates a list of codes, sends the code home with a student and or communicating this, remotely, then the parent has to do it within 7 days and it's only good for one of them. Whereas if you just provide directions for how the student generates the code, then the student can generate as many codes as needed. So if mom or dad doesn't do it, until 8 days, then they can just generate a new code, or they can generate multiple codes for multiple guardians. So my suggestion is always to let that be the process, but certainly others can disagree with me or choose another route. We do have guides here. There are mobile guides, there are web-based guides, and here's even a training video for the Canvas Parent app. You have to turn on self-registration for observers on your authentication page. So let me go here, and I'm going to go back to my account. If you want parent observers, you have to make sure on your authentication page that you have turned on the ability for observer accounts to self-register. Another very good tip is if you're using parent observers is to create a discovery page so that all of your users are directed to one page, both staff and students. Notice that this button is linking out to rss.instructure.com/login/SAML. So for staff and students, they're being directed to NC Ed Cloud. And this one, copy link address for parents, is going to link out to /login/Canvas, which is the parent login screen. Okay, so this one would go to Rapid Identity. This one would go to Canvas. When parents are creating an account, they go up here. They enter their name, their email, a password that they want to create. This is not their student's password. This is not their student's email. They do their password, they re-enter it, and then they generate they have to enter in, not they generate, they have to enter in that student pairing code. This gives them directions on how to get the pairing code. How do I generate a pairing code? Student goes to their account, goes to settings, hits pair with observer, and gets that code. Parent puts that code there and agrees and starts participating. They're automatically enrolled in all their child's courses at that point as an observer. If you're using a discovery page like this, then you would put that URL here and save it. And again, all of your users would be directed to that page. If you're not using a discovery page like this and you're planning to use Canvas observers, then it's very important that you've looked at your app. Let me go into my app. And can you all see my camera, Pam? In addition to my screen?
No, I just see your screen.
Can you see my camera now? Maybe?
No.
Okay.
And now I don't see the screen either.
Oh, okay. Let me see what I can do. Okay. Can you see my camera now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Can you see the screen, or is it too much white?
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's very bright. There we go. That's better.
Okay. So do you see how Rockingham County, they have also added this driver's ed, which is separate. So I'm just talking about the parents and the staff and students. They have 2 entries in their app, one for parents, one for staff and students.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to parents, it's going to take you to their Canvas login screen where the parents can create that account. If you go to the students and teachers, it's going to take you to, it will when it loads, rapid identity. Okay. If you have a discovery page, you don't necessarily have to have 2 apps in your you don't have to have 2 entries in your app, because that discovery page is going to be what pops up, and then parents and students and staff can click on the appropriate links here. But if you don't have a discovery page, then you want to make sure you have 2 entries in that app. And if you don't and you need it, then you can either email North Carolina K-12 at instructure.com and tell us you need to have a parent option added to the app. And or if you know who your CSM is, if it's Lauren or Ashley, then you can ask them. Okay. The discovery page I showed was just one that Roanne Salisbury created. So you can, so you wouldn't use theirs. You would just use whatever you make. Most people just set them up as a page on their website. And then once they have that page on the website, their district website with the 2 buttons, and they also added some help guides, which were nice. You could add this video in. But then you would just add it as that discovery URL right here and save it. Gotcha. Okay. Gonna move on if there aren't any questions about support. During this unprecedented time, that's the word we've all been using a lot, right? That I know that you're gonna receive an abundance of questions from teachers. I really highly encourage you to help them learn to use the support process. For some of you, you have tier 1 support, so you purchased tier 1 support. If you did, in your help menu, you have, your teachers even have a phone number to call, and they have a chat option. Encourage them to use that. If they don't, then still encourage them to use the report a problem, because if it's something that, if you don't have tier 1 support, then you as the field admin are going to have to, manage those tickets at your admin console. But if you need to escalate it to us, it's much easier. Things that are broken, or things that, someone doesn't know how to do, or they don't appear to be functioning right, those really need to be support issues. And they really need to go to support. So I just wanted to remind you, I linked out to our February home base meetup, because in that we provided directions for all the support things, like how to escalate a ticket. We gave you the support phone numbers for people with 24/7 support. That's what typically, we have a standard support package, but no one in North Carolina has that, because the Pam and her team have done such a great job of negotiating the contract for North Carolina. So everybody has at least 24/7, which means that you as field admin, and you can have 3 field admin in your district or school, you all have access to call Canvas 24/7, 365. You also can chat with support via the admin console, and you also can escalate tickets to us. And we say that we will respond within at least 8 hours. So do know it's not always immediate, but it is 8 hours. If you have purchased tier 1 support, then your staff can also call or chat, and then the SLA, the service response time, is indicated at 1 hour. So just as a reminder, the phone number for, if you only have tier 1, or 24/7 support, this is the field admin only number. Please do not give that out to staff or students. We also cannot respond to student tickets at all. So just know they'll always be redirected and reassigned back to you. And if you have 24/7 support, again, your phone number will be listed right in your help menu, because your teachers can also call it. There's some support ticket flow. This is when you log into the admin console, what it looks like, and there are directions here for how you can manage those tickets. Okay. So there's field admin guides for the support console. So just wanted to make sure that you remember that all of that guidance and that help was there from our February meeting. Parents cannot call tier 1. That's just for staff, and just for staff. And yeah, absolutely, we're happy to get you a quote if you're interested in that. Definitely helps take some burden off of you and your team, to allow our support team to answer those faculty questions. Are there any other questions?
We do have a few topics on the Padlet I'm checking. So I don't know if we want to just, if you want to go on one more thing, and then we'll save the last 15 minutes for kind of wrap up of any topics on the Padlet.
Yeah, sure. I thank you for that. And just Sarah, I didn't see an email about asking for a quote. So yeah, definitely please resend that to me. And Dave, recording features. There is a 500 megabytes limit. So it's not necessarily a time limit. It's the size of the file. Get this to pull up. Just go to our documents. So file Excedia. So Canvas converts files up to 500 megabytes. If it's over 500, you can have to host it somewhere else. Okay. Gonna jump over to the Padlets. I think we talked a little bit about that. Hopefully you saw that demonstrated as well.
So Christy, I had kind of made a little I had jotted down a list of them, so I don't know if you want me to.
Yeah.
So the ones we haven't really talked about yet were the new rich content editor. Some people are finding it a lot different. And since it's forced, we didn't know if you had any suggestions or help to help transition folks to the new rich content editor. Some people are going to love it. Some people are not.
So it's not being forced on now like it was previously announced. It was supposed to be forced on in July, and I think it's now there's or December, I think, and now they're saying July next year. You know, don't quote me on those dates.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. So the difference, I mean, I always 100% forever and always am going to say when people, you need to provide teachers resources, go to the Canvas guides. They're already created for you. They already have great screenshots. And if there's any time that we ever make a change, then that's going to be updated there. So you have all of these guides. So my best suggestion is to use all of the guides. The other thing is in every instance, you have a training portal. Now, if you purchase a training subscription for us, you have more content here. But even if you don't, teachers can just go to the courses, help, training services portal, and then they log in. I'm going to have a landing page that does not look like your teacher's landing page because I'm an administrator. Hopefully you all have a landing page that looks a little bit like this. But when teachers go to that training services portal, they're going to go here. And it's going to provide them an opportunity to see all of the different options. There are pathways that are, programs with multiple steps. In this particular case, I already did this one myself, and so I've completed it. It's a 6-step, 38-minute preparing to launch. It's a really quick get started. I did have this in the slide deck as well for you to look at. Once I finish it, I get a certificate also. But in your course or in the learning library, you can see all of the different courses and videos that exist. The reason I mentioned that is, and I haven't specifically looked for a new rich content editor one, but my assumption is, especially as we get closer to the enforcement of that, if there's not as a rich content editor, if there's not already one, then they will create one and put it there. I feel very certain, because you'll see that there are videos for lots of different things, and these are quick videos. So again, this was something I was going to talk about anyway if we had time, is just making sure you're utilizing this training portal, because it's a great way to get teachers up and ready. There's a K-12 First Day Ready program, which is 6 steps, and it takes about 4 hours, and they get certificates for completing that. There's also even a admin one. So if you have setting up your K-12 instance, that's for admin. But let's look at my course I just created, talking about new rich content editor, just for any of you who aren't familiar. In this course, I have not turned it on because I have it set to allow in my instance. Okay, so I haven't turned it on yet. So when I go to make a page, you'll see the old rich content editor. But if I turn it on, sorry if you heard that. My son just had a little Slim. It's always fun working at home. All right, so then you have the new rich content editor. Some of the biggest changes are that just things are nested. So like all of your LTIs are under that plug. Your media to upload are there. Your images are here, so you don't have that tray over on the side. Also, the HTML editor is there. Ability checker here. So just know that this is what that looks like. Yeah, Dawn, it is being real and authentic for sure. All right, Tam, I'm sorry. That took probably a little longer. Yeah.
The other thing was talking about I'm sorry, I lost it here. Where can we see if we allowed students to use in-course email to other students?
Where do you see? I'm sorry, can you repeat?
If we allowed students to use in-course email to other students, I'm assuming they're like talking about back and forth communications.
Inbox. Yeah.
Inbox, yeah.
Gotcha. Took me a second there. All right, so in your permissions, you set permissions for different course or account roles. And so conversations are what those are called. Let me see. Did I skip a conversations? So this is where you have the ability to either send messages to entire class or individual course members. Notice that in my instance, I have it turned on for students to send to individual course members, but you could turn that off. I always suggest you turn off send messages to entire class. Horror story. I told you I had student body classes, had a student at a high school. We did not have that turned off. He sent messages like, I printed them and it was probably this thick to everyone in the student body over and over. Like every couple seconds, he sent a new message over a period of about a day. And it was about this thick when I printed them out. So turn this off. All right. Is there another question? Thanks for answering about the training portal. Yeah, because it's just in every instance, it's help training services portal.
So some of the other, Sarah's asking if we can turn off that student permission by sub-account.
Yeah, so you can go into a sub-account. And so let's just say that for my high school students, I wanted to turn it off and or, vice versa. You just go to the permissions in that sub-account and then you adjust it there.
All right, next question. When does Canvas community change names?
So August 6th is going to be when they, I don't know if is it changing names or just the interface. I don't think I recognized they were changing the name of it, but they might be.
I didn't hear that. I thought it was just an update to like the layout and everything.
Yeah, but it's possible that they're changing the name too, and I missed that specific language. But August 6th, they were supposed to do it July 27th, but it's been pushed back to August 6th now.
All right, and then another question: is there and how, it's a way to force notifications to get email notifications when they receive a message in Canvas? We know they can set it up individually, but we don't want them to be allowed to turn that off. We also want all messages to be sent to our Gmail so we can catch language and archives.
No, there's not a way. I'm sorry. If you did have the students' Gmail accounts connected to Canvas, and they had notifications turned on, then those messages should go to their Gmail, but there's not a way to force a notification on for a student. They can turn it off. Do know that for, those of us who work with K-12 all the time, we do say that that's or have indicated that that's a big request from our customers, but currently that's not, that functionality doesn't exist.
And then I answered this one, but just double check me that we can still use classic quizzes until July of next year, right?
Let's see, it's longer. That might be December 2021 when I was.
Okay. I knew it was a long time, but I knew this year they could still use them.
Yeah, they can still use them. Yeah. Sorry, that's being a little slow for me. Whoop, that's not what I meant to do. There's and if y'all are not used to going to the community, you've probably seen me do it several times during this meeting. I work for Canvas and I go look for information here daily. So just know it's like a great place to search and find information. But now it's been extended to July. You were right, July 2021.
Okay. Yeah, I use the guides every day too, because there's just so much. I mean, you can't, there's too much of it to keep it all in your brain, at least my brain anyway. After having 2 kids, I feel like they've each took a chunk of my brain. So
I understand. Yeah, no, it is hard, very hard to keep all of these things straight without reference.
I'm not seeing anything else on the Padlet that we haven't addressed, other than if we would just want to talk a little bit. I know we talked about elementary, but
okay.
So I see Lisa's talking a little bit about Big Blue Button, but I did see a couple of people reference K2, so I didn't know if you wanted to spend the last few minutes talking about K2.
Yeah, I can do that. And Lisa, just as a quick answer, no, you can't change the button, but you can certainly use other tools for conferencing like Teams. In your help menu, you should also see video conferencing resources, and all the information about Teams is listed under the different LTI integrations. But it's a plugin, like a LTI external tool that instead of it will not change the conferences button. Okay, so elementary. I have a ton of elementary resources. Again, I think I put this in the chat a little bit ago, but I'm going to put it back in there again. There are, in March, we actually had some presenters from Forney ISD come in, and they talked about how they use, they talked about how they launched Canvas for littles in their school districts. So you can, look at their slide deck, as well as if you go to next, there you actually, get to see more information, including their templates, and even can go in and see that homepage and look at their modules. I don't think there's much there in the modules, but you can look at that homepage and get a feel for how they're using it. So that's a good example. I have to say that if anybody, Dawn has done an amazing job of curating samples of Canvas courses, including elementary examples. Lots of different ways that you can look at that. There's one. I think I really liked the Pasco one. Dawn, if you're still with us, is there one specifically that you like?
Yeah. So the if you go back, the Rocking, is it the Rockingham? I'm not sure which link. I think it's the first one. They show a lot more really deep dive examples of what do quizzes look like with with Kinders. What does certain modules look like? Now, this is not on that course, but another. Because my background is secondary, and so I've been really trying to do everything I can to learn elementary and how our elementary peeps operate. But I joined I'm not on Facebook normally, but I did join a Facebook group
called Canvas for Elementary Teachers, and they've got about. I mean, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but they're two admins in that just are extraordinary. If you really want to see from a K-5 perspective, and I think it's Carrie Babb Gardner is their is one of their admins, and they do a lot of great stuff. And you'll see now. I will tell you, it does. There's 60,000 members, and they do get down in the weeds, and you see a lot of complaining, and I kind of turn that off, kind of thing. But occasionally you'll find some really good stuff. There's also secondary educators too. I just saw Christy pop that up. So anyway, that's where I've learned the most about elementary use and launch. And but anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, this and specifically, so I had actually had Carrie and Lindsay presented a group I was in the other day. And if you look at their topics, their Canvas camp out topics, this is what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Some of their videos and putting resources. So it kind of helps you bypass some of the complaints. And I'll be honest, the complaints are mostly because teachers are scared to make these pretty Bitmoji pages. It's not because they're really scared of Canvas, it's the Bitmoji pages. But they have done a fantastic job. So you'll see Canvas Camp Out Part 5 and a resource for that. You got your Part 4, 3. So these are great ways. And also, did I hear Taking the Fear Out of Canvas? Have you watched that one, Dawn, or has anybody else watched that one?
Yes, I did start watching that, and they've got some really the lady that does that did a real nice job with it. So yeah, that's another. I think that's a YouTube kind of thing. Yeah.
So she's got how many parts now? Like at least 13. But there's 14. I have heard great things about this series as well. So. Well, y'all, I know we're about out of time. I hope that helped cover just more things and just reminders of how teachers can get content from last year into their course. So I put something in there about the training portal. So there's a picture you can even share if you need to. Don't forget about NC Canvas Commons. If you filter by that, you'll see resources that DPI have created and shared, as well as NCDPS courses. And we have our first statewide call for this school year coming up Monday at 2:00. We try to meet every first Monday of the month at 2. And August 3rd at 2 is our next call. And this is always the Zoom meeting link. And Pam, is there anything specific we need to say and wrap up additionally?
So we do have a feedback form, and I just put it in the chat. If you wouldn't mind, please giving us some quick feedback about the meeting. And we're particularly interested, since it looks like we're going to be virtual for a good bit, just to any tips or tricks or ideas for how to make this more interactive and collaborative. I think the session was really very collaborative, I felt. And thank you, Christy, as always, for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, I see one additional question from Marilyn. Marilyn, please reach out to us, either North Carolina K-12 at instructure.com, or if you work with Ashley or Lauren directly, you can reach out to them. But they can talk to you about the TLS. But just to let you know, that's an upgrade that we can't do anything on our end. It just basically means that we see that somebody, somehow, something in your district or school is hitting an old or is using an old protocol for API calls. A lot of times people don't know who that is. And if you don't know who it is, you have till September. And if September something breaks, then you'll probably know what that was. But if it's not something that you know specifically about API calls, it's probably not that alarming. So.
Yeah. And just real quickly, Dave asked a question about lockdown browsers, and that is something that, you can integrate through LTI. I think Respondus is probably the most commonly used one. I've heard good things about it, but it's not free. Anything else, Christy, you want to add about that?
No, Respondus is definitely the most popular, and they just started working with new quizzes. So for anybody who didn't, who has Respondus and Canvas and didn't know, it does now work with new quizzes.
All right. Well, I think that's all I have, and I just want to thank everyone for your time. I know we're right here at 12 o'clock, and we will stop recording, and I'll hang out for a minute in case there's any other questions anyone wants to unmute. But otherwise, we will see you in September for our next meetup.